actually a sort of an auction sermon that Bob and Bernie sort of raised the question to me about the youth leaving religions, and more specifically the youth leaving Unitarian Universalism. And because of the readings I chose, I was actually inspired to write a letter to our older children and youth. And I'm going to read that to you first, and then we'll talk, okay? So, to our cherished older children and youth, it really has been a pleasure getting to know you better in the course of the coming of age programs we've held at our congregation. I did that myself, you know, coming of age. I sat in my minister's office, across from him, this man with kids my own age. I didn't feel particularly heard or seen, and for reasons I'll explain to you, one day it wasn't long after that I stopped attending church. I successfully argued with my mother that I shouldn't have to, and I didn't darken the doors of the UU congregation until 4 years later. But here's the thing. I was miserable my first year of college. I felt I didn't fit, it wasn't working, I needed something. And I thought, where in my life have I felt welcomed? Where have I felt, even if it wasn't from the minister, that I was valuable, seen, heard? Where had I learned some of my inner strength? Where had I been told in words and deeds that I mattered? It was at the congregation of my childhood. You all are growing up in a time very different from the one I grew up in, and that much more different than the one your parents and grandparents grew up in. You are coming of age in America in the shadow of terrorism, in a time when the availability of information means you can't run from knowledge about the violence in the streets, the racism and sexism that is rampant, the oppression and prejudice against LGBTQ people, the uncertain future that awaits you. This world you are growing up in is different in many ways, and anyone who says otherwise is fooling themselves. But there are some things that will always remain true. Human beings have a need to be seen and heard, to be valued, to matter, to be with others in community. There is a lot of darkness in the world, and having people that know you deeply can help you fend off that darkness, whether it rises to confront you from without or from within. Now, I know the moment will come for many of you that you argue with your parents about having to attend church. Or maybe you'll graduate from high school and you'll declare yourself anti-religious or atheist, or you'll move away and simply start to forget about this place and these people. And I know a lot of us worry about what it means that some of you will leave, because we don't know if it will be forever or for just a few years. But it's okay. You're going to walk the path you need to walk. You're going to find yourself how you need to. There are some things I want you to remember, though, if the time comes that you do walk away. You will always have a home in this place among these people. These will forever be, no matter how old you get, the people that helped raise you. The people that cheered on your coming-of-age credos, the people that provided a safe place for you to learn about health and sex and ethics, the people that encouraged you to be you, even if that you wasn't welcomed in other places in your life. More broadly, you will always have a home in Unitarian Universalism. Even in that moment when you have that revelation, the one that many of us have, that religions have been a source of evil and violence and death, even if you declare yourself a staunch agnostic, or that UUism is too loose, or that your parents are weird hippies, you will always have a place under this tent, welcomed as you are, whoever you become. Here among these people, out there among UUs in the wider world, you will find humanity. That's the truth. Struggling humanity, perfect in its imperfections, flawed but wonderful, attempting with many missteps to build a better world for us all. And what is more, if the time comes that you leave and the time comes that you return again, you will find that in many ways, the blessing and the curse of a liberal living religion such as ours is that it is what you make it. You determine the level of authenticity. You determine the level of justice seeking. You determine the level of hope and community and truth. You'll find out what I mean someday, I hope. And until then, know that wherever your journey leads, there will always be a door open to you, always a place that you can call home. Your minister, Reverend Sarah. You all, grown-ups of this congregation, you know the same statistics I do, that youth and young adults are leaving all religions in droves. Some of you have watched your own children walk away. Some of you despair about the future of Unitarian Universalism, or you despair about your own children's future or your grandchildren's future, and I understand. But I want to tell you that I think you don't need to despair. In some cases, your children have left because we taught them the lessons well. Discern for yourself, make choices for yourself, find your own path and way in this world. And sometimes that path and way leads away from Unitarian Universalism. In some cases, your children will be back one day, they might even become a minister. After sowing their wild, anti-religious, super conservative oats. You never know. You can't control it. Parents whose children have left Unitarian Universalism, I'm talking to you. You are not in control of the religious life your children choose. You are not responsible for the religious life they choose. And parents whose children are not yet at that age when they're fighting you every Sunday, when or if that moment comes, it won't mean that you have failed somehow. That absolution aside, all of us, the adults that create and build and sustain this congregation, have a responsibility to make this place a place people want to be, a place our youth want to stay in. I'm not sure I've shared broadly the story of why I stopped attending as a youth. I have fond and wonderful memories, actually, of my church childhood. We used to make potato prints. We had 2 hours of Sunday school. Okay, so if you ever get weird about how we had one, we had 2. We made potato prints during the second hour. I have very fond memories, and I'm still in touch with the student minister who facilitated my junior youth group. He's actually now a wonderful minister serving in Pennsylvania who participated in my ordination. But I grew up in a congregation that experienced, when I was 10, a scandal. Our minister, the famous Forest Church, who was married to the religious education director of our congregation, had an affair with a woman in the congregation, a member of the congregation. The congregation voted to keep him on as minister, and by the time I finished coming of age, I was well into my preteen idealistic phase. I already had stirrings of a call to ministry, and in that way that surely only self-righteous idealistic youth can, I was sure that retaining this minister was antithetical to all things ministerial and religious. Why should I have to attend church whose spiritual leader could make such an egregious mistake? I was so convinced that I asked my mother to make sure that he was not the one to sign the Bible we were gifted with at the end of our Coming of Age program, and so instead mine reads from the Unitarian Church of All Souls. This is the way of youth, right? So sure, so dug in, so idealistic, not as forgiving of human frailty as we become as the years go by, when our own flaws and failings show themselves clearly. In time, I wished I had stayed and seen the ways our community had healed, the ways our minister had healed. But my path was my path, and to this day, I cannot honestly say that I think it was handled right by the minister or the congregation or the collegial organization that holds us to ethical standards. But I can say this. I know this from personal experience. One of the most important things that we can do as a people of a living liberal religion is to try our damnedest to actually live by our principles, our ethical codes, our values. Yes, we will fail sometimes. We will make mistakes. We will break covenant. We will make unethical choices. We will give lip service to justice movements but refuse to stand up for them. We will claim to be for equity but hold tight to our own privilege. We will do these things, but we have to learn to do them a little bit less. And we have to learn to do them with humility and maybe a little bit of shame even. And maybe we have to do them with much more honesty. I think that our youth need, I think that the young adults we so frequently talk about wanting to be welcoming to, right? The famous nuns who we're always talking about, who are longing for community but just don't know where to find it, and if only they found us. That's what we keep saying. What they need is for us to actually live as if the words we are saying have meaning. Not just in our own individual lives, but writ large. Our children and youth, the young adults among us, the adults of all ages among us, what they need, what we all need, is for us to not be hypocrites. They need us to be authentic, to embody our values out in the world. They need to be able to trust us. They need us to be sincere. They need us to be committed. They need us to mean it when we say we are welcoming. They need to see us ask for forgiveness and offer it. They need to hear us speak about Unitarian Universalism as important to us, if in fact it is. They need to see us taking action about the things we care about. They need to see us actually take a stand on the issues that matter to us. And they need us to speak openly and honestly, to re-story, as Fred puts it, why all of this is meaningful. They need us to talk about it, and they need us to do it. I know that all of us in this room can point to the ways in which the world we grew up in was hard. Life just is hard. That's a truth you don't reach adulthood without realizing. But I often have the sense that the children growing up now are navigating something different. Some earlier loss of innocence, maybe they face constant, overwhelming amounts of technology. Through that technology, they confront a reality of the world that's just different somehow. The whole world is photoshopped and spun, this is my sense. And they need somewhere that feels solid and trustworthy and honest and real. That can be us. It can. We don't need to offer more classes or flashier signs down by the road or big bands during worship, though you know I love a big band during worship. What we need to do is live our faith. Live our faith. 3 simple words, not so easy to do. I said at the beginning that I don't think you need to despair. Despairing is not what's going to serve you or our children or our future. What will serve the future, serve the youth, serve all of you and us right now, is walking the talk more than we do. We can let them see us apologize to each other. We can let them know what this religion means to us so that when I do that again in 2 months, they're not all going, I don't know the answer, I don't know. Right? We can let them hear us tell others with pride that we are Unitarian Universalist, that we go to Sunday worship every week. It's not a dirty little secret. You can tell people and be proud of it. We can invite them along to marches. We can let them help us hang a Black Lives Matter sign. We can let them witness our kindness and compassion in the world. We can let them witness the real struggle we all go through to actually live up to our ideals. Because it isn't easy, and they don't need us to pretend that it is. They need to see us struggle with it as human beings. We can show them that we take all of this seriously. It isn't just a 1-hour, 2-hour Sunday social club. Because when we do this, we aren't just helping to make sure our youth stick around. When we do this, we are helping ourselves and each other. The misconduct of my childhood minister was complex in its aftermath. In theory, he ought to have resigned, but he went on to serve that congregation for many years successfully. He changed by all accounts. Forgiveness was given and a new relationship built, and they lived into it together. We are human, flawed, imperfect, struggling to do what's right, struggling to confront our own frailties, struggling to be honest about our failures. Our task is to live our values, and when we can't or when we won't, to be honest about it. Because we aren't fooling anyone. When we can't or won't live our values, we can't hide it behind excuses or prevarications. We need to look honestly at ourselves and our choices, be willing to be transparent about them, and humble when we choose not to live our values. And then we need to push ourselves over and over again to do better, to live more consistently in line with what our mission and our faith calls us to. And so if that is the challenge, if the challenge is live your values, live our mission, live your faith, what would you do differently? How could you, how would you make this even more a community worth staying in? What would you do differently?
Each weekend, we make an offering from the bounty that we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in a spirit of generosity, aware that we have benefited from those that have gone before, those who in their turn gave generously. The offering goes to support the mission of our congregation.